Welcome back to the Fail Breakdown channel. It is Tuesday, December the 9th. A little bit different today. We are not going to be talking about fail breakdown, and that's because it was quite a rare day for us in that we didn't have a good clean fail breakdown to trade today. And so instead we're going to be looking at a couple of backtests of the key 6847 level. So that's okay, it'll give us something different to talk about. There's always some lessons to learn. As ever, this is going to be based to the best of my ability on the method taught by Adam Mancini. Check out his newsletter on Substack and subscribe at the links below there. Okay, let's get into the charts. Okay, so here we are on the 4-hour. We're on the back of very strong Thanksgiving week and then grinding higher the following week in this upsloping channel, and we put in a little failed breakout of the November 12th high here last Friday, and then since Monday we had a pretty slow grind down. Looks a lot more dramatic on this than it was, but very slow grinding down day yesterday that set up a nice failed breakdown right at the end of the day yesterday, or a nice level reclaim of that 6847 level. And that's kind of where we found ourselves into the evening session. Pushed up a little higher before what's been a bit of the tone of the last week or so is that early morning pre-market dip. So let's get down onto a 15-minute and take a look at that. So here we are on the 15-minute. This is at the end of the day. So showing all the action today. I mean, the first thing to note coming into the day, obviously we had the 6847 reclaim here right at the end of the day. Very nice, easy setup with hours of acceptance, and then a quick pop through right at the end of the day. We just saw it tapping into the level multiple times. So very clear, quite easy trade with this type of trade. The acceptance is so obvious, you don't need to worry about the danger zone. You just wait for it to push through the level with momentum and get in a couple of points above, maybe 48, maybe 49. And we often get these setups at the end of the day, and that one was very clear. That ran up a couple of levels into the evening session. We had the other important level here, the 6857, which we tagged a couple of times overnight. We've got this pretty wild flush down, 10-point insta flush and right back up, and just kind of establishing the importance of the 47 level. And then right off the open, or right before the open, we kind of back tested that again and lifted off, and this is going to be the area I'm going to be looking at today on the replay or on the other chart. So let me bring that in. Let's take a look. Okay, so here we are about half an hour before the open. Got it in replay mode. We've got our plan set up for the day from the newsletter. So levels clearly marked on the chart. Nothing to do at this point. Obviously we had the active fail breakdown or the reclaim of 6847 right here from yesterday, right before the close. So still holding runners from this with stop below the lowest low, somewhere down at 32. So nothing to do at this point, and because we've got the active fail breakdown, we don't need to stress about, because we've got runners rather, we don't need to stress about taking low quality setups. But with our plan in place, this is a good time, a good opportunity just to kind of gameplay some potential scenarios of setting up in our mind our if-then statements. So the market can do a number of different things. It doesn't really matter to us, but kind of playing them out in your mind ahead of time, when it's quiet or when it's in between levels, is a good way to prepare yourself for executing and reacting should something transpire. So from this point here, obviously we've got the 6840 level that we were keen to engage, but we had the London spiky low right here, which becomes our main target for looking for a sweep. So just sort of playing through the scenarios. From this point we can potentially work our way higher in which case we do nothing. We can chop sideways, in which case we do nothing. We can come down, you test the level, maybe hold, and there's a potential backtest long in there, which is actually what we'll talk about. And we can also flush the low, reclaim it for our typically what we're looking for, which is obviously our failed breakdown, our primary scenario that we're hoping for. Or we can break down the level and just continue flashing lower, in which case we'll look for a trade at a lower level. So those are, you know, some of the things, the if-then statements you can go through just to prepare yourself as we come into the market open. So we're right at 9:05 here. I'm just gonna speed things up a little bit. Okay, this is running at about 10 times speed. So I think it's worth talking about here that, you know, Adam actually classified this as just a back test, not a failed breakdown. And you know, I maybe a little misread this myself at this point and coming into the open, and that and you know, a bit of a lesson for me today, the kind of distinction between a back test and a level reclaim. And for me, I guess, well, the key takeaway for me is that for a level reclaim, you know, a 2-point flush or 3-point flush of a potential level reclaim trade is really just classified as a back test, rather than a failed breakdown, especially if we think about these levels in terms of zones, maybe a couple of points wide, rather than, you know, discrete levels. So actually, I took this trade that's going to set up here, but in my mind, I was considering it as a failed breakdown of the 47. But, you know, having learned a bit from Adam's tweets today and some communication with other members, it was really just a backtest long. So that goes down in my book as a bad winning trade, but I'll take that, I suppose, over a bad losing trade. But yeah, just a distinction there, I suppose. So with a level reclaim, for it to be considered a, you know, failed break or level reclaim type of failed breakdown, you'd really be looking for a deeper flush than just a couple of points. You know, those micro flushes, I suppose, really only count for when we have discrete lows, you know, such as this one here at 44.75, and that was what we were looking for, perhaps hoping for, as a nice clean setup here this morning. So we're right at 4 minutes before the open here. I think it's just before we open we test it directly and then start to lift off. So no sweep of the low at this point means no failed breakdown. Lifting, I'm 10 times speed, so I'm going to slow it right down here because it happens pretty quick. Let's just run at 2 times speed. So bouncing straight off the level, almost to the tick. I think it was 1 tick higher. And instantly bouncing, what's that, 8 points so far. So a good strong bounce there off almost the exact same level as we had overnight. It's now just 30 seconds after the open. So showing strong demand from the 68.45 / 47 level. And then we're going to dip back down here. And this is what really enticed me to take the long after we didn't flush this second time. And then we lifted off of it again, and it's going to happen real quick. So I'm just going to leave it running at 2 minutes, 2 times speed. So right now my eyes are kind of flicking back over to the range chart just to see the swings. And you know, at the time, like I said, I kind of misinterpreted this a little bit, but I was reading this as kind of type 2 acceptance of a 68.47 failed breakdown where we just flushed the low by a couple of points, lifted off of it, you know, in this case about 8 points ish, dipped back to it, and then we hold perfectly here. And seeing the demand coming in at this point, I kind of I got in once we start bouncing off this level, and by the time I got in, we'd lifted off the level enough, so it was actually right about 5 points above the level. Yeah, this was the sort of type 2 acceptance pattern that I was liking a lot, where we lift up, test back, and bounce, and then right there it's kind of where I got in for the long, seeing the demand come in, and then we slowly work our way up to the 60s and beyond to 68. So yeah, a little bit of misread for me, but one way just to show the back test and potentially how you can see demand in the level for trading those back test longs. I'm gonna run this real quick because I gotta run just to show kind of the end of the trade. So that was the only really potential trade today. There was nothing else. We popped up to 68, kind of chopped around, and then slowly work our way back to 47 by the end of the day. And that is just about all she wrote. But I got ahead, so I'll catch you guys in the next one.